Hey you folks, it's Nate, and we're going to get back to the drawing board here. Tonight we're going to look at iron sights. Your boy Zach asked people to roast the heck out of this, and I was originally not going to. I got this about a month ago, give or take. I read it the night it arrived. I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't have a whole lot to say about it. But since then I've thought on it some, and I've come up with a few things to say. Also, I saw that Uncle Ethan posted a review by one of the folks over at Medium.com, and Mr. Medium had some interesting things to say about it. He had some good points. He also tried to read Zach's mind a lot when he was writing the review. Seemed to think Zach was out to just bully people he didn't like with this. Sounds a little bit like Sargon's Law. Might be projecting a bit there, but I'm not going to try and read his mind, so we'll just leave it at that. Regardless, let's look at the book itself. For starters, this cover is fake news. Zach says that the people on the cover ought to be awesome in the book, and you know, two of these people are. We got Ramadi here. We got Woods. Both of those are in the book a lot. Now, Esme, spoiler alert, she's not in the book a whole lot. I think this might be a case of false advertising. Although there are two really good reasons to have her on the cover. I'll give you that. Long story short, after having about a month to think about this, and after rereading it yesterday, I've come to the conclusion that Iron Sights is a decent book, but it's got some flaws. And I'm going to start by talking about the flaws a bit, starting with the flaws in the art. Now, I recognize that this is Ibai Canales' first time working on a project of this size. He gets a lot better as he goes on. Props to him for that. Applying yourself pays dividends. I like the art style overall. It's pretty solid for this kind of story. It's a little sketchier than most comic art. Personally, I like sketchy art more than a lot of the over-polished stuff that you see in a lot of mainstream comic books. It's a pretty subjective thing. But on the whole, I like the art. But three things. First of all, I wanted to say that some of your action scenes, Ibai, especially the ones with snipers, like this one right here, we could use some wide shots here. There's, especially in video work, they tell you to vary the distance of your shots. Of course, Zach talks about this too. We have a whole page here of close-up shots of them just sort of looking down their rifle. And then again, I believe it's the next page. Nope. Okay, it is this page. I have other things to say about this page. But I feel like, especially on this page, we could use some wide shots just to give us an idea of where everybody is in relation to everything else, and to change the flavor. You know, this is a pretty dynamic shot compared to this page, which feels fairly static. Some wide shots to show us, you know, the bigger picture of what's going on, where Ramadi and Woods are in relation to everyone else. That would be really nice. I think it would make this scene a lot stronger. And there are some other places in here where I thought that as well. But that's just one example. Another thing is you could really use some silhouettes. Silhouettes do a couple of nice things, and I'm probably not, you know, this is not a huge revelation to you in all likelihood, but there should be a certain balance to most pages. The rule of thirds applies. You want about a third to be white or very light, a third to be very dark, and a third to be in between. And a lot of your pages tend to be very, very light in tone. Like here's another page that's like that. That's not too bad. This is a very white page. So yeah, darkening some things out would be nice, and you could get stronger impressions. And I was looking at this panel in particular. Woods is running across the mesa here, and of course he's backlit by the moon. And if he was just a silhouette instead of, I mean, you did a good job with this piece. The gun looks nice, he looks nice. But if he was just a silhouette here, framed against the moon, I think it would be a lot stronger and it would feel a lot more ominous, which is fitting because he's about to die. Another spoiler alert there. So things like you got some good rendering here, and that balances it more. But it would help balance it. I think it would be a bit more dramatic. Again, just a strong silhouette there, casting his shadow on the mesa. Very ominous. A much stronger impact than just him running and panting. You know, I didn't have any other places where that would work picked out. But there are several spots in here too. Moving on, the third thing is a lot of your faces look very similar. Now, in some cases that's okay. Like Woods is here with his, I believe that's his dad. But like, look at this cop, and then look at Wood's dad. These are very similar faces, similar hairlines. Of course, he's wearing glasses, which helps a little. But there are a lot of shots where I was sometimes unsure whose face I was looking at. And I know that same face is kind of a problem in a lot of comics. I would just say work on your repertoire of facial pieces. And yeah, this is a page that really confused me when I first glanced over it, because you got Woods up here, you got the cartel sniper, you got Woods up here. Sorry, wasn't looking at my screen. You got the cartel sniper down here, and I mean, the faces look very similar. They got the same basic shape, same nose. Of course, Woods is dead here, and he's got the open staring eyes, which yeah, it was very confusing. And I would just suggest you have a pretty cartoony style. It may be hard to think of ways to do faces. I did a quick mock-up here to show you kind of what I'm thinking of. These are a set of characters I've designed for a comic I'm working on, and I tried to tweak each of their faces so they were a little bit different. Mark here has a slight underbite, and a normal sized nose. And he's a little more lantern jawed than any of the other characters. Yu Deng here has, of course, the Fu Manchu mustache, a very aquiline slim nose. Then down here we got Al, is a very protruding lower lip, a much larger nose, of course, curly hair. And Frank here has a broken nose and no hair on his face whatsoever. And they've all got the same basic face shape, but developing a repertoire of little things like that just to make them a little easier to tell apart. And even if they all have, similar hair colors or stuff like that. Of course, with your style, you could even get a little more radical. You could go with things I like to think of this as the hatchet face, where it's almost like an axe head like that. The square face, very heavy set like that. The full tenaple, very thin, kind of pointy all around. So I would try and develop a few more facial techniques and be a little more proactive in designing them. I know Zach probably didn't give you a whole lot of suggestions on that. That was probably more your shout. But yeah, Zach, you probably should have looked the designs over and maybe suggested some facial tweaks just so there were fewer similar design elements in them. I know there's a lot of hair cone back in that, lots of receding hairlines. Maybe that's fair. But just try to introduce some more variety, even if same face is quite common. There's very little facial hair in this overall, especially among the main characters, the male main characters. I know Ramadi's buddy has a little fuzz there, and of course the cartel boss had a mustachio. But I feel like that's in general a underused character design element. Just something to think about. I guess Ramadi does have a soul patch too. Let's talk a bit about the story. I'm sorry, still a few more things to say about the art. I did like it. I think the art is a great fit to the story. It feels really fun. I mean, the pages are just fun to look at, even when they're very sketchy. It's very dynamic. Your characters are super expressive. Like, I love this shot here. I can look at just about any page and see good expressions, very dynamic looking. It's just little things, you know, the face, some wide shots, and more dark space in general, and better uses. Like this use of silhouette is pretty good, but there's not a whole lot of stuff like that. I think it would be better with it. You emote well too, Ibai. It's good stuff. It's good stuff overall. Let's talk about the story. So let's start by talking about the villains, because the villains are the things that bug me the most about this. Okay, this guy here, he is a compelling villain. This guy here, not a compelling villain. We get a lot of this guy. We don't get a lot of. I mean, we got a lot of this guy. We don't get enough of this guy. To be perfectly honest, I would have preferred the cartel boss be the primary antagonist. I know that's probably not the way cartels really work, but hey, this is exploitation. It's just supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be schlocky. Throw the cartel boss in there. He would have been good. I think you're the third sniper, the mute sniper, is introduced too late in the story. I think it was about a third of the way in. At the end of the closing act is not where you introduce the most dangerous villain. Here he is, right there. Okay, he's introduced a few pages before this. I'm not sure exactly where that is. Where is it? Here it is. So yeah, I mean, look how many pages in we are. That's not ideal. What I would have done, as far as introducing your villains goes, is I would have started not with this speech in the cartel boss's office, but rather with the accountant killing Wood's father or brother or whoever that was, and with the cartel boss congratulating on it. That establishes that he's a bit psycho right off the bat. It makes him a little more intimidating. It's just very hard to get over this introduction of him. And then maybe as the cartel boss is leaving, he sees the mute guy there, and he sends him after Woods to clean up that loose end while the accountant goes after Esme. That's just how I would have done it. That gets all of your villains in play much faster. It keeps things clipping along. It's more on point. Second thing, let's talk about this gal, the sister. She should have died. That's all there is to it. I know sending her away is a thing that a sensible person would do, but it's bad for the story. A lot of authors want their characters to behave in really smart, intelligent ways, and it is a good move to make. But as soon as she's out of the story, the tension just drops like a rock. I get that Ramadi is in it for the thrill. He's a thrill killer. Most people can't relate to that. People can relate to being worried about a close family member. So you got to have her in there for more of the story to keep those stakes high. Because as soon as she leaves, most of the stakes are gone for Ramadi. And if she was still in there for, the second act of the story, that keeps the tensions high. And then once she's dead, well, again, we all understand the motive of wanting revenge for somebody you care about. Well, maybe, Ramadi doesn't seem to do a lot through the middle of the story to try and find Esme. So it doesn't seem like he goes after the cartel in the end to save her. It seems more to be because his buddy died here. And that's a decent motivation. Fair enough. But video demonetized. Not that I can monetize anyway, so I'm not going to worry about that. I think the friend should have died at the beginning of Act 2. And then Ramadi should have been worried about his sister through Act 2, and then she dies at the end of Act 2, provoking his final attack on the cartel. I think that would have been a stronger story arc. And setting up your villains faster would have helped that, because it lets you put the pressure on much faster. You don't have to spend as much time setting up Woods. We know his dad is dead in the first scene. Ideally. So my ideal setup, in case it isn't clear, would be we start with Wood's dad dying. The accountant and the third sniper, I'm sorry, I've just forgotten his name, go after the various loose ends, namely Woods and Esme. And so all three of those two people are already in danger from the very beginning of the story. And then when Ramadi accidentally inserts himself in it, they all have reasons to congregate around him. And the danger is on that much faster because all of the cartel's bad guys are already in motion, already chasing people down. Then Ramadi doesn't have time to send his sister away. She gets shot. She winds up in the hospital. He tries to get her out of there. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they kill her in the hospital. Maybe he gets her out of the hospital and they catch up to him and she dies then. You could do it a lot of different ways, but that way your pacing is fast, 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 fast. The stakes stay higher, and it's a better story overall. The third thing, and this is something Mr. Medium did mention, your humor, I don't know how to say this, actor, humor sometimes falls flat. And, it's one thing when, like you had the Walmart Target bit in here at the beginning. I'm not going to try and find it. That was, you took a exchange you and a buddy had and you dropped it straight into the story. That rarely works. It relies somewhat on the personal dynamic between you and your buddy. It relies on, whatever discussion had been building up to it. You probably found it really funny at the time. It probably was really funny at the time. But that kind of thing rarely translates well into a story. It's tempting to do that. You can take the idea of a joke like that, but you really need to refine it. You can't just take it out of the context where you said it and drop it into a story and have it be funny. That's an amateurish mistake. I'm being blunt with you here, Zach, because I know you'd rather be told you have a booger on your face than just have people ignore it and hope you feel good. That's not the way to do humor. You have to take your bit and you have to look at it in the context of your story and really, really tweak it and make it work. Just because you said it one way between you and your buddy doesn't mean you can't refine it, you can't change it, you can't make it work better in your story. That's just, if you're going to use humorous ideas like that, that's how you have to do them. Okay, but all that said, I do think Iron Sights was a lot of fun. It has good action. The plot twist at the end is really good. It feels fun the whole way through. And just like I said with the art, you can find almost any page and find something fun and exciting happening on it. I think that forgives a lot of sins. I think it's a fun book. I enjoyed reading it. Now, am I sorry that I spent $15 on it? Not really. I'm glad I haven't. But you frequently ask the question on your channel, Zach, is a comic worth the price tag? You read a comic, you enjoy it, and then you say, was it worth $5? So let's ask the question, was this book worth $15? Is it a $15 book? This is Fables, 1001 Nights of Snowfall, written by Bill Willingham. And here are all the other credits. You can read those if you want. This book is in color. The art is, again, no offense to Ibai, but this is very, very good art. Probably better on the whole than what he did. And Bill Willingham is a great author. There's a bunch of great short stories in here. You know, some of them are comics, some of them are just text. And the price point is $15. It's longer too. I mean, just look at that. So, was it worth $15? Well, I mean, it's in color. It's longer. It's the same price point, and frankly, it is better written. And it's even an Eisner winner, Best Anthology, 2007. Look at that. So is it? You know, does it measure up? Well, let's look at something else here. This is the first volume of Naoki Urasawa's 20th Century Boys. Price tag, $13. Fantastic art. Naoki Urasawa is probably one of the best manga artists in Japan. This is probably, I would say, his second greatest work. And again, not quite as large, but longer. And it's $2 cheaper. So is this book, you know, when there are books like this out there, at the same price point, more or less, is this book worth $15? I'm gonna say no. And a lot of people are like, well, maybe it's not fair to compare Iron Sights to those books. But the fact is, Zach wants the market to decide, and at his price point, that's his competition. This is pretty stiff. Pretty stiff competition. And I got to tell you, Zach, I honestly think this is maybe a $9 or $10 book, not a $15 book. I enjoyed it, but it doesn't have anything that these books don't have in greater quantities. So honestly, this is not at $15. I don't know if this is worth the money. I'm not sorry that I bought it, because I did enjoy it. And hey, I already have these two books. But at the same time, Naoki Urasawa's Monster Perfect Edition, Volume 1, is $20. And, you know, I've always wanted Monster in hard copy. It's a great story. So, that's what I think of Iron Sights. It's good. I don't know if it's worth its price point. I hope the feedback that I gave to you two was helpful. And if anyone else sees this, well, I guess let me know what you thought. This is Nate, signing out.